Real quick before we start, I'm just going to go grab a glass of water, and then I'll be ready to go.
All right.
I'm going to do the same thing, actually.
And then everyone leaves. And I'm left by myself, talking to myself. Left to feel the void. Or is it more like, lonely, I'm so lonely. How's it? I have nobody for my own. Or something like that, right? You know, and then we could do something like, one is the loneliest number that you ever seen. And I really think that's all I know from that song. I know there's more. That's the only thing I ever remember. Oh God, if I use this as the cold open, it's just me singing. Oh shit. Oh, it's early. That's why. It's. I haven't fully woken up yet, so I'm slightly delirious. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and His Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Lebick. Joining me for this episode is someone who I'd like to see navigate the absurdity of the Bluth family, Josh Zorch.
I'm curious to learn how that factors into what we're discussing.
Sitcom-y, right? Sitcom-y.
Okay, we're there. All right, good.
Because it'll make sense for this next one. So, for the next guy, if it weren't for a pandemic, I could see him ending up in the bar where everybody knows your name, Mike Bradley.
I mean, that's where I was beforehand. That's where I'll be when this is all over.
All right, guys, before we get going, anything to plug? Josh, I'll start with you because I feel like it'll be short and sweet.
Nope.
Okay. Mike, anything you would like to plug?
He was right. It was short and sweet. It's like one word. Yeah, you can catch me Rare Achievements on Twitch. That is twitch.tv/Rare Achievements. You can catch the Rare Achievements YouTube channel as well. Just search for Rare Achievements on YouTube. You'll find me there. And we may have some projects in the works that I'm not going to name yet.
He's got the tease. The tease.
There's something happening in the background that
on YouTube or Twitch?
Yes. That I haven't been talking about. That I'm going to be bringing soon.
No date lined up when people can expect it?
Well, I mean, I'm not really trying to edit or push this PC right now, as I discussed earlier.
Yeah.
The PC's, it needs repaired. So no date yet, because
Okay.
I don't know when that's going to be 100% good to go.
All right, we'll keep bringing it up until every episode you're on. We'll keep teasing it until it's there.
I don't know when we're recording again, but hopefully within a month or two.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
Fair enough.
Brian, I just also realized that my simple, straightforward response of no is very apropos to the discussion about to follow.
For WandaVision.
Indeed.
Yeah, so on this episode, we are talking about WandaVision. So this is the Marvel series on Disney Plus that is fully connected to the MCU with Scarlet Witch and Vision. At the time we are recording this, the series has aired its first 5 episodes. We spent some time sort of talking about it off the show. I thought it could be a good thing to record just in between some of the few Rewind Theater episodes we've got going on, mainly because I think the show, just between our conversations that we've had and then conversations I've had with other people, have generated, I think, some really fun discussions and speculation about what the hell's going on. So that just kind of lends itself to a podcast. So that is what we are doing today. And, with that being said, since we're going to just go straight into this, I'm going to throw out the spoiler warning now. So if you're not caught up for the first 5 episodes of WandaVision, you can pause us now, come back after you've caught up. This is our disclaimer because there will be, we're not going to be the ones responsible for spoiling something for you. So if you listen further, do so at your own risk. Other than that, enjoy this episode that we're going to do for you. Spoilers to follow.
Wee-oo, spoiler! Wee-oo, spoiler! Something like that.
All right, so here we are on a Sunday morning, still digesting, I'd say, the most recent episode that we watched. I feel like after the first 3 episodes, it was a little difficult to see where this show was going, but that was sort of part of the fun. And then episode 4 happened. It was really fantastic. I think they gave us a good amount of answers, and I guess in my mind, it started going, like, it framed the show around, like, the first 3 episodes were more or less like, what is going on? Episode 5 kind of shifted, or 4 into sort of like, what the hell's going on now, or where do we go next from here? And 5 really kind of stuck with that line, and I think the end of the episode really just kind of broke me, which we will get to. So we're gonna try to lead up to that and sort of wrap up around that event. I don't know why I'm trying to skirt around the bush, because if you've made it this far, you've seen. But there's a big reveal at the end of episode 5 that we will work towards.
And
Can I make one point?
Yeah.
Already, we're going to talk about it eventually, I know, but to me, that wasn't the biggest reveal in 5.
Oh,
But
okay.
We'll get to that.
All right.
I would also say, I know every now and then I get the impression that we have a few and we're appreciative of them, casual listeners who don't always consume a lot of the projects that we might be talking about on the show. Some, movies, Rewind Theater comes to mind, etc. Legitimately, just my personal view, if you like the MCU at all, if you like any of this kind of stuff, seriously, stop the tape right now if you have not watched these. It's actually just really, really good media making. It's really good television making. Aside from anything else, it's just clever as hell so far.
Yes.
And it's really just good storytelling. So I know we already threw spoilers out, warning out, and all that, but legitimately, if you will enjoy it, is really what I'm getting to. So please do that if you haven't yet.
And if you plan on watching future movies and having them make sense, you need to be watching this, because this is officially Phase 4. It's listed on Disney Plus as Phase 4.
It does feel like required viewing as far as the MCU.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I can see this definitely leading down a spot where people are going to get to a movie theater at some point, presumably Doctor Strange, when Wanda is in that movie, we know, and being completely fucking confused as to what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I don't unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be like the Netflix shows or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it's a property they made, you could take it or leave it. Doesn't really, like, I think Mike said it right. Like, this, the way that the world worked out with the pandemic and everything, Black Widow unfortunately did not kick off Phase 4. This is it. We're in it.
Yeah.
So I thought about just trying to lead into our discussion, just talking about what we know, but really, even at this time, we don't know a lot of concrete things. So the basic premise of the show, sort of what we know anyway, is that Wanda seems to have repurposed an entire town in New Jersey to create her own little bubble that has seemingly put the entire town under mind control to play out some sort of fantasy of suburban life in the form of TV sitcoms. So
it
sort of
seems that way.
Yeah, sort of just going from there. I'm just going to start with, like, again, I just have, like, sort of a list of questions and stuff I want to bring up and point out, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
But sort of just starting with, like, one of the first questions I have for you guys. What do you think Wanda is doing this herself, or does she have help? Is she being forced to do whatever is happening?
I was definitely wondering that at first by, like, episode 2. I think episode 5 eliminated all pretense of that or question. Honestly, could there be help or others involved? I guess, I suppose so. I don't know if there really needs to be, given what they've fed us so far.
Right.
But yeah, as far as, was she a willing participant in something that was an experiment? Was it an observation? Was was this against her will? Was she actually a prisoner in this construct? All valid questions in the first couple of episodes. I think by probably 4 at least, and definitely, well, even like by the end of 3. But I think episode 5, hands down, just said, like, nope, this is all her design and control to me.
Yeah. Mike, do you agree, disagree?
Yes and no. Agree and disagree in different ways. because I think episode 5 framed it in such a way that she is self-quarantining her, like she has put herself in this position to keep herself away from others and keep herself from hurting other people. And I think at first it was subconscious and she didn't realize she had done it. She just retreated into her own mind and this happened.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it was an accident that she didn't know her powers could do it. But as she has figured it out, she likes it and doesn't want to stop.
I could buy
Okay.
that.
So you're still thinking no other hands in the pot. It's all Wanda
Somebody
doing this.
may have put her, like it seems like she doesn't know how it started. So I would say it's possible somebody put her in there, assuming they could contain her that way.
Yeah.
And that she's finding out they can't and that she has full control over it. Like she may have been... No. Now that I'm thinking more about what happened in episode 5. No, she doesn't know how she started it, but she knows she has full control over it now.
Okay.
She learned at some point that she can manipulate everything there.
Because it's very hard for me to decide, like, where I fall. Because I think going in, I would have guessed that it's her. And even, like Josh was saying, I think the further you get in, I think more solidifies that, yes, this is Wanda doing it. Whether or not she did it by accident or if she is fully aware of what she is doing and the harm she is causing and just doesn't care, or if that's happening by accident and she's just trying to, I think like Josh said, quarantine herself and stay in there and try to keep people away because she knows she's hurting people and she doesn't want to hurt anyone else. And she does have the line in episode 5 where she doesn't know how this started. Now, what I can't decide is if she is saying that just for Vision, so Vision doesn't freak out, or if she legitimately does not know how this started. Because she's flat out been lying to his face the whole time. So the fact that they are in the TV show talking to him when she says, I don't know how this started, I don't know if that's her actually breaking down and being honest, or just more trying to play up the facade to keep him in check.
Right.
So again, I could see it explained either way. I still have no idea. I'm like 90% sure it's her doing it all. And I think it would, from a dramatic standpoint, I think it would be a lot better if it was her. I would rather not have someone else influencing her or doing it for her and she's stuck there against her will or something like that. I think going forward in the MCU, I think it'd be a lot just to see how other characters and heroes react to her causing this and being fully aware of what she is doing. I think that, from a storytelling perspective, is very interesting.
I agree. That's a good point, because if there's anyone else who, again, even if it was a willing experiment at first or whatever it is, you remove one degree of, like, you're creating a puppet master to some degree, whether it's like a willing cooperation or not, and that then dilutes the accountability and responsibility that Wanda takes on.
Correct.
And I agree with you. Going forward, having to deal with her could be way more interesting, because now it's, really for the first time, a teammate, an ally who, sort of, I don't want to say it's like Planet Hulk in a way, but along the lines of, we may need, like, the threat is inside.
Yeah.
We have to understand how to deal with each other, not just the villain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different, like, Civil War tried to do, like, okay, what happens when the team turns on each other? But you could still point the finger more or less at Zemo for being the guy that instigated that divide.
Right.
Yeah.
If this is, in this case, just Wanda deciding to do this on her own, that's a whole different way to spin this to divide the team.
Exactly. Because the goal is not conquest.
It's selfish.
Like Loki. It's very personalized. It's selfish, and it doesn't go. I mean, not that taking over an entire town by mind control is not a bad, it's a bad thing. That's horrible to do to people. But it's a different type of paradigm than, like I said, than conquest or destruction or anything like that.
Well, and I think we see her in, again, a lot of this comes to a bit of a head, or like a mid-season head in episode 5, if you will, where we see her explain, like when she's arguing with Vision, I'm doing this to this town so it's not the entire world. Because she's beginning to realize that her power means she could just kind of enslave the entire human race to be her giant sitcom if she really wanted to.
Yeah.
Which I would say I am actually very happy that they have finally gotten back to illustrating her use of that part of her power. Like, I feel like you got that in Age of Ultron.
Right.
And other than, like, telekinesis and energy bombs and whatnot, like, you didn't see anything like that again since Ultron. They never used it again.
Right.
So for her to use the mind control, fake visions, manipulation type of side of her again, I'm happy that they tapped back into that.
And I feel like the show does a pretty good job of answering this already, but just to see if we're all on the same page. The next question I'm going to ask: why do you think Vision is doing this? Or not? Or why is Wanda doing this? Sorry, assuming she's in charge.
Because she's mentally broken. She dealt with losing her brother, and then
her parents
not long.
That.
Her parents when she was a kid, but I mean, like, she dealt with that as a kid, and then within the span of 2 years, she goes from losing her brother to falling in love with Vision to losing Vision, and it's all just broken her.
Oh, yeah.
And she's also somebody, mentally that went, presumably, I may get retconned at this point, being a normal person to having godlike powers. So add all those things together, and yeah, she's kind of lost her shit. And she realizes it. She at least has enough to know that she has, and that she, at least in my eyes, like, she's separating herself because she knows she would cause more harm than good.
Yeah.
I'm with that, and I think the point in episode 5, one of my favorite parts of episode 5 was when she herself exits the barrier and comes out and talks to them and brings who does she bring back out? Oh, the drone.
The drone, yeah.
The drone. And really just like a one simple line that she said, like, I have everything I want and you're not taking it away from me again. Like,
yeah.
I finally am in, like, and that's why I brought up the rest of her history. She, as a young child, a teenager, however old her and her brother were, they obviously came from an unstable, sovereign state to begin with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's destruction. Then there's the death of their parents. Then they grow up and become, protest revolutionaries in a way. Then they submit themselves voluntarily for experimentation with alien energy and shit. And then all the stuff you mentioned. So, yeah, I think for, 20 some years of her life, she has just reached her point, and she found the ability to control the circumstances, and she just wants stability.
Okay. Yeah, I could see wanting that sense of control. I guess I didn't really think about it that way. I've been framing it more around just basically the loss of Vision, I guess, being the catalyst, maybe.
Catalyst for sure. I could think, but I doubt it's just that.
Maybe I think the event that triggers mutant powers.
Well, she already had powers before, so I guess they wouldn't really.
But mutants are different, though.
Right. But they even mentioned in the episode that she got, they reiterate she got her powers from the Mind Stone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but some of these powers she didn't have before.
She didn't use them before. It doesn't mean she didn't have them.
What are you?
We'll discuss that.
Okay, yeah, not the.
I'm sure you're going to ask questions about it later. but I mean, if you want, I can go into it right now.
Yeah, we'll go there.
Okay. She brings Vision back to life. This is the bomb that they dropped in episode 5 that is a whole nother level. That's not her saying it. That is the witnesses saying it outside. She brought him back to life. Everything that's inside that is real. He's actually there.
I'm speculative about that.
I'm still on the fence too.
And let me say why. So yes, I thought when they show that reveal, and this kind of ties into another question I had, which when they give us that exposition, they're like, oh yeah, so we just got this security cam video from 9 days ago. So this whole thing has only been happening for 9 days, to the point where it's like it took it only that amount of time for them to notice what was happening in Westview, for Monica to show up in the first place and get sucked in, and then them set up this whole operational camp. That part, if that's what they're trying to tell me, I don't know. I don't know how to say I'm not buying it, but that part surprised me. Like I thought this would at least have to have been going on for several weeks for this much shit to happen this quickly. Maybe that's neither here nor there, but just something that stood out to me. But yeah, when they're like, oh, she broke into wherever the hell they were and took Vision's corpse, which apparently they've just been keeping. I guess you wouldn't just get, like, I don't know what else you would do with it, but like they
don't put it in a trash compactor.
Right. I get that. It threw me off because I never thought of it. Like, what happened to Vision's
and it's not organic,
physical
so you wouldn't really
being,
bury it.
Yeah. But it's been sitting there for 5 years. The whole time Wanda was gone. You know, 5+ years. And the reason that I'm speculative is it's the people outside who are making the conclusion. They're observing things and they are guessing, in my view. They, like, yes, they said this in a very declarative sense, but to them they're still learning. They're trying to understand all of this. So I could see some other explanation that ends up being the real truth, as opposed to, oh, well, their understanding, of course, they said he's been resurrected, so they must be right.
That leads to, well, I was going to say that leads to the elephant in the room here, because of the reveal that I know, Brian, you want to get to later.
Yeah, I don't want to get there yet.
Into that yet, but that reveal means maybe she didn't bring Vision back to life, but she tore him from another reality.
That I would buy more than being brought back to life.
Okay.
Because that's kind of definitely what happened with said reveal.
Well, because I think, again, thinking of where we're going, like, we are getting her, she next appears that we know of in Doctor Strange 2. Doctor Strange 2 has a very revealing title, which is The Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
By the end of this, she has to break everything to the point where it's up to Doctor Strange and possibly her to fix it. And I think we're starting to see the cracks already. Obviously, the reveal is one of them, I think. And it could have started from her pulling Vision from somewhere else. Could have been the thing that kickstarted the multiverse falling apart.
So could it be either, number one, that like maybe she stole his corpse, realized she couldn't do anything with its physical, like, corporeal sense in front of her, so she looked for another solution?
Well, let me ask you guys.
I can't do anything with this.
That's
heap
possible.
Of stuff.
But my point was going to be is either way, whether she brings him back to life, literally, or she pulls him from another reality, those are not things she was capable of before this. Neither of those things did they give any inclination that she was capable of before this moment.
Well, that's why some people are saying, like, the internet is thinking she can't do this herself.
Oh, I see.
Or
and I could lead that to
the actual Scarlet Witch that the comic books has presented for 60 years that can.
Which is something too, because every movie that she's in, they have to, whoever's in charge of the movie decides what rules or power sets someone can use in a movie, so that you can't have. In my mind, I just keep referring to the Superman problem. You can't make a hero that powerful that nothing can touch them. You have to set limits on people, and I don't know if they're actually going to explain it away as to why she can do things now that she couldn't before, or if it's just going to be like, oh, that's what she does now, and just roll with it. Which I could see them doing, just because it's a different aspect. The powers do what the story needs it to.
Right.
There's not always an explanation. So if they want to have Vision back to life and they just want to say Scarlet Witch did it, that's the end of the story.
I hope
Well,
they're not typically that lazy of writers. So no, really, they're not.
Fair.
So
yeah.
I hope there is something further that we will get to and we've talked about this in even recent episodes about world building and rules. I need a rule. I need to understand how this works. I can't just have Mr. Government Sword Guy in his tent out somewhere making an offhand remark about she resurrected Vision. Oh, and I guess that's it. What the hell does he know?
Right.
I need something else. Not to say any of these ideas all these could be right, several of them could be right, etc. I just need something better.
And for me, here's the thing. One, I mean, there's things that we know that are coming down the pipeline eventually. And there's things we know about her from, I mean, again, 60 years of comic books. And we know that eventually the mutants are going to arrive. And she happens to be among the first family in mutantdom, if you will, of, being technically Magneto's daughter. I mean, she is Magneto's daughter, but in this universe, we don't know what they're going to do with that.
Right.
But if they get to, they even start with Darcy bringing up the hex powers, because that's normally the way her powers, what they're referred to as, is hex
Which I
powers.
like really how they spun that. Like,
yeah.
the whole bubble is a hexagonal shape, so they're calling it the hex, and that's how they're going to frame her magic. It's just being referred to as the hex. Like, I love that.
Yeah, that was a really nice throw in there. But they're starting to frame that, and they're starting to throw that in there. So here's kind of the thing with Wanda's powers that you can learn from reading one of many, many, many different comic books is sometimes they can be a bit of a monkey's paw, where she can make things happen, but the results are not always what she or the reader expects.
Right, okay.
Kind of like when she tries to kill every mutant on Earth, but leaves about 200 of them alive. She meant to kill them all, but it didn't work.
So she has a lot of control, obviously, over the action, but not the consequences.
Yes,
She
sometimes it doesn't do exactly what she wants.
Right.
Sometimes it comes close, or, I think there was, like, at one point, I remember reading something like she can affect probabilities of actions occurring. So something that might have that 1 in a billion chance of occurring, like Vision being resurrected. Her powers could turn that 1 in a billion chance of figuring out how to resurrect him into a 1 in 10. And, just make it more possible. It doesn't get any more explanation really in the comic books, but she can make the impossible possible.
I kind of want to spin back to the whole Vision thing and Alive or how he came back type of thing. Two things. One, I'm pretty sure in one of the episodes, the sword people in the real world, one of them, I think, asked the question that we're all thinking. It might have been Randall Park's Jimmy Woo, basically asking, like, well, did she recreate the Mind Stone? Because that's still in Vision. Was that
question asked? I didn't even notice that.
I'm almost positive they asked it in no one had an answer, but like it was like, how did they bring Vision back to life? Don't they need
that sort of way?
Don't they need the Mind Stone? So if Vision is alive, would that have happened? And two, how did you guys interpret the scene at the end of episode? Was it 3? Now can't remember which one it was, 3 or 4. But when Wanda throws out Monica and then turns around and sees the corpse of Vision standing in front of her.
So I'm glad. Okay, so let me answer address the first question. If I can remember what it was that you asked.
Did she recreate the Mind Stone if Vision is alive? Like, to Mike's point, if she ripped Vision from another universe,
well,
you don't have to answer that question because the Mind Stone came with Vision. But if she is repurposing the corpse and turning that to a living thing again, would she need to recreate the Mind Stone?
So I normally hate to say, like, start questions in this way, but I can't think of it. Do we know that the stones Oh, Cat. Okay, Cat put them back. I was just about to say they weren't destroyed by Tony's use in the way that Thanos initially tried to do,
Right.
but we're shown at the end of Endgame that Cap put them back in the timelines. Um, I don't know if I have a good answer for that part of it. Um, the second part about Vision's corpse, though, was something I was going to bring up as part of that section of the discussion, which is in the same way that things from the outside change into something else and aesthetically more period appropriate, etc., when they cross her barrier. Is it possible that the thing she's seeing as Vision is his corpse? She has animated the puppet of him. That is not him. That is still his. He's still dead. Now,
And I think that's the darker way to play it, but that was still my go-to answer. Is that she is puppeteering the corpse of Vision, and for that split second,
in the same way that she says in episode 5, like when he starts to question her, "Oh, you think I keep everyone in line and make sure that they, pick up their kid from school and take them and get their dentist appointment on time," which I do think her level of micromanagement is that involved.
yeah.
She is, that's why she says it out loud, like, this is exasperating to try to make sure that this reality seems as normal as possible, and I have to pay attention to the minutia that much.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can think so far, though, that could be, disabuses the, hey, it's just Vision's corpse the whole time argument is, if that's the case, why would she create a consciousness for this corpse to interact with that begins to question her?
That, yes, I agree. That's
that breaks
my
down.
hang-up
That
too.
that part
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me.
If she
so
is
it could
fully
be
in
a
control of
mixture.
him, why is he questioning her?
Exactly. So I think it could be a mixture of the two. There could be different elements of it at play. Maybe she is. Maybe it's both. Maybe this is, like I said, she's puppeteering a shell, but she otherwise is trying to recreate the essence, the energy, the the thing that the Mind Stone could do for something like a being like him, and so they're kind of interacting with each other. That's one of the biggest questions that I would love to see answered by the end of this.
Because I think there's like over the course of the first 3-ish episodes, there's a lot of instances where Vision does not move until she tells him to. Like, he has no thought process. Like, think of the dinner in the first episode when the guy's choking. He's sitting there,
Right.
motionless, until she goes, "Vision, help him." And
Very
then
true.
he goes and saves his life. And I feel like there's 1 or 2 other instances after that where the same thing. Something happens where Vision does not do what you would think he would normally do until she says, "Go ahead, do it." But now, like you're saying, he seems to be he's figuring out what's going on. He's getting his own thoughts and starting to fight back against her. So if he's actually still a dead thing, you would think that would not be possible. So how is he being able to get a personality back out of all of this?
Mm-hmm. Mike, you look like you have
So-
thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, from your first question, Vision coming back without the Mind Stone, we already have a precedent for that. Shuri was already doing that.
But if
She just got interrupted and was unable to do it and unable to complete her work.
Okay.
So is there some way that Vision could be Vision without the Mind Stone? Yes. But could Vision have his powers without the Mind Stone? We don't have an answer to that.
Well, the kicker is that whenever we see Vision, he has the Mind Stone in his forehead.
Which could be part of the illusion she's created, because that's how she knows him. That's how he was.
Yeah, I mean, she also removed all color from the world, and it's. You might it could be something that she's making appear to be there. I think is what Josh is getting at, even though it's not.
Right.
Okay.
Just like many of the other things that appear to be there. That
Yeah, it's part of the
Aren't
mirage
reality.
of this layer of reality that she's manufacturing.
So he might actually be alive in the bubble without the Mind Stone, but every time we see him alive in the bubble, he has the Mind Stone. That's sort of my point, I guess.
or she's trying to figure out how to bring him back and I don't know. Like, part of me feels like there could be multiple things going on. And I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but hear me out. She's trying to figure out how to bring Vision back to life. But for the time being, she ripped one from another reality.
Which, again, would also, I think, lend
She's
to
doing both.
the multiverse fucking up. Maybe she couldn't recreate the Mind Stone. Maybe she didn't steal Vision. Actually, I kind of like that better. Maybe she didn't steal Vision from another reality. Maybe she pieced together the corpse, stole another Mind Stone, the one Cap put back,
Okay.
Or
and put that
any
in
Mind
Vision's
Stone
head.
It doesn't even have to be the one Cap put back.
Yeah, so anyone.
Yeah.
And she put that Mind Stone back in Vision's corpse. He somehow reassembled himself and rebuilt himself and is alive.
So wait, hear me out.
And the warnings from all of that is that we have to put the things back we take, or you unravel reality and break things. So if she stole a stone and didn't put it back where she got it from the time she took it, like the rules that were established in Endgame, that this is
Right.
starting to be the unraveling of the universe thing.
So hear me out on this. This is another one of my throwing shit at the wall things, but it's also, it just like hit me like a truck there for a second. Cap goes back in time to replace all these stones. Wanda somehow follows him because we don't know what her powers can do. Fuck, they're just making shit up. Or she figures out some way to follow him. Lets him put them back, but takes the Mind Stone when he goes to put it back, and his entire like realized life with Peggy was of her creation. And
yeah, you're stretching here, I think.
No, it doesn't add up. It doesn't work. But I mean,
I like your idea as like a 3-issue comic.
a what if?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be that layered here.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But it came into my head.
It's not a bad
like,
story beat.
What if the whole reason he stayed behind is because she offered him that life in exchange for, I mean, like, just here, go do this.
Yeah.
Go live that life you missed. I'm gonna take this. Deal with it.
That would just make
And
me
Cap
sad.
couldn't do a fucking thing about that, you know? Like,
all right, so I want to get to make sure we get to other questions and stuff too. So we're gonna try to wrap up the Vision alive or dead thing with just simple yes or no. Mike, Vision alive or dead? Yes or no?
which Vision?
The Vision that we see, is it a living Vision, or is it living Vision, any Vision, whether other universe or our Vision, or is it puppeteering corpse Vision?
I would say it's a Vision from another universe.
So alive.
Alive.
Okay, Josh, alive or dead?
At the moment, you guys are really selling me on the alternate universe Vision, because you could easily chalk up the shot you see of her seeing his corpse as just a moment of weakness, because that is her fear and that is her sadness, and that's what she's seeing for a moment. That's not what's actually there. But then I don't really know why you have to tell us she stole Vision's corpse.
Yeah.
So I'm going with puppet corpse.
Okay.
God, that's dark for Disney.
I mean,
I
they
know,
already did it.
I really want to see how this ends, because I don't feel like Vision's going to make it out of this series alive.
I don't either, and I think that is going to lend to the severity of what really the end result of the show is, and how bad things are going into Doctor Strange.
Yes.
The
I agree.
realization that no matter what I've done, this is like, I've lost this. I cannot have this thing anymore.
Well, I think it's not going to be her choice. I feel like it's going to end by Vision convincing her it's time to let me go.
Could be.
And to that point, I think I'm putting more money on like puppeteering corpse. Like, he is dead. He can't leave the bubble. That's why they can't. She doesn't want to do anything. She doesn't want to break it down. She doesn't want to go outside. She doesn't want to let anybody in or to stop it, because if the bubble breaks down, Vision's dead. It's not like he's gonna make it out of the bubble and somehow be alive in the real world. He is stuck there.
Yeah.
And that is why she doesn't want to leave. So I'm putting more money on Vision is dead and not alive, but depending on how they spin it, like they could win me over with an explanation, like Mike was saying, the way they would spin Vision being alive. I could buy that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one time we all talked off the show, we were speculating what the logo was that we kept seeing on everybody's uniform that was popping in and out and stuff like that, and we were thinking it was probably Sword, but we weren't sure. So episode 4 did confirm we are dealing with Sword, which is the Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Division. So
that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to say we're working on it. God.
Yeah, they should have thrown that line in.
So basically, I mean, this is more or less, I guess, our Shield replacement for the MCU, since we haven't really seen a lot of Shield stuff.
I mean, Shield's still gone, isn't it?
Not if you watch the show. They explain Shield coming back for the show.
Okay. I don't know how tied in that officially is.
Josh and I talked about this. I'd love to see those characters at least have a cameo somewhere down the line, because they do exist. And by the end of that series, you can see them almost going Sword-like at the end of the show. So I feel like they're hand in hand going together. It's just that the movies don't really give a shit anymore. But God, I'm holding out hope. So a few things that show up, or at least are talked about, that I think can lend themselves again to more speculation through episode 4. So the director of Sword mentions that they shifted from manned missions and started focusing more on robotics. So he also mentioned to Monica Rambeau that space is full of unexpected threats, to which Monica Rambeau responds, full of threats and allies. So I don't know if she's referring to Captain Marvel, or if she is fully aware of other things that are out in the universe that have helped. I mean, they could be even referring to Thor and stuff there, but I don't know if that's a hint of like, hey, she's seen some shit out in space.
I mean, she met the Skrulls.
The Skrulls, yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the movie Captain Marvel. That makes a lot more sense, yes. But the mention of manned missions, I've seen the internet say Fantastic Four. That this is how we get Fantastic Four. That's
the prevailing theory.
Yeah, Sword could be, whatever mission gives Fantastic Four the powers could be a Sword-sanctioned mission, manned mission for something.
And I've heard one that makes a lot of sense, too, that it sounds like they have not... He's saying, like, we don't do manned missions anymore. They stopped at some point, so maybe it's been X amount of time, so somewhere between 0 and 5 years, that the last manned mission went out. Maybe they didn't return yet. Maybe it's the 4 of them. They went and MIA, and when we finally get the Fantastic Four film from John Watts, that will be like, what the hell happened to them while they were away, and now they're coming back into our time and planet.
Right.
Or maybe they're already back and they're just quarantined because they don't know what to do with somebody who got changed that way in space.
Fair. Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what they do with them, like, in the canon as it is? Like, when they get back, they end up quarantined?
I mean, probably. Makes sense.
I would assume they come back with weird powers. Yeah, you're not going to let people just run around out in the world that way.
Yeah.
So another thing that happened in episode 4 was sort of their exposition of like what's been going on. When she's being caught up to speed by the director, he mentions the FBI is in a tizzy about a missing persons report in Jersey, and that they need the use of the Sword drone. So this is a detail I think that's is mentioned and then overlooked because all this other shit happens, then it gets buried.
Right.
When Rambo shows up to Jersey and talks to Jimmy Woo, he says that someone under witness protection is in the town, and that's why he's investigating. And then realizes the whole town is missing.
Oh,
so there
I
was
totally
someone that they went looking for that we don't know who this is yet. They find Vision and Wanda in there by mistake. And that becomes the problem. So any guesses? Will this be a cameo, like someone important that we should know of? Who kicks off this whole investigation?
If we haven't seen them yet, I think that would be weird. Like, if we're halfway through the show and we haven't even met that character in passing, I think I don't know what role she would play. I think it would make most sense for it to be Catherine Hahn, but I don't know what significance she would have or why. Like, I don't know why you'd meet the person who, that refers to in like episode 7 or 8, just as it's ending. Like, why not
Right.
why not seed that earlier on?
Well, I have another theory with her too
Okay.
that I sort of want to spin with this, like compound with this. But Mike, do you have any just flat out guesses? If there's anybody,
I mean,
maybe not specifically who, but do you think this is going to be of someone like we'll recognize this person when we find out who it is?
what do you mean recognize? Recognize them as a player in the MCU,
Right.
or recognize the character's real name?
Yeah, just either or, I guess. Really, if it's
I think it's going to be their way to introduce somebody, some new character, some new hero that we're gonna get to know exists here.
yeah.
Their inclusion in the witness protection program leads me to believe that we're talking about I'm trying to think of like the right way to put it, but somebody that I'm assuming they're the same person. You know what I mean? Like I would assume it's the same. Like the missing person in the witness protection thing, I assume is the same person.
Mm.
I don't want to get too far into speculation, but it's obviously somebody that crossed organized crime in the wrong way. If they're in the witness protection program, it has to be being protected from somebody. Otherwise, you don't need to be in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe this, and I'm gonna throw it out there as somebody we haven't seen yet.
Yep.
In my own personal opinion.
Uh-huh.
Josh is like, all right, bury the lead here. Let's go. What do you got?
I would not be shocked if Vincent D'Onofrio shows up here in his big bald fatness.
Oh, Kingpin.
Yes.
I don't.
Okay.
And this is another tie-in.
How
And this is another way to connect things.
do you remember where we left him in season 3? I don't recall.
He was arrested, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he was just in prison, but that doesn't mean he doesn't
Put back
turn
there.
on a bunch of people.
Right, he could. Yeah, I
At
just
some
couldn't
point,
recall
and
how we left him off. Okay.
yeah, I mean, if he turns on a bunch of people, it's just the organized crime thing. Like, it has to be somebody that is in danger of being killed by somebody they're about to testify against. That's the witness protection program. So that's what leads me in that direction. That's my only.
I mean, we could just be shooting the shit here for no apparent reason. Maybe that's just the plot point to get Jimmy Woo
MacGuffin.
there to find the problem.
Yeah.
But I feel like
Does
that
Marvel really do that?
that's what I mean.
They
Like
don't drop
it's a
that much
detail
about it if
that they
it's-
bring up, and then he says like, "I've contacted close relatives of this missing person who they don't think he exists." Or maybe he didn't say he, but the relatives of this missing person suddenly don't remember this person ever existed. And then he started looking into
that's
people
the
in the
one part
town
of it.
and realized that people in the town, they couldn't find traces of anybody that would say these people were alive or dead. And it's, spiraled in him to realizing that the whole town somehow is now missing. And that's when they called in Sword.
So, do you have any specific thoughts, or
Who it could be, no. I just think
Okay.
it is someone of importance.
do you think it is somebody that we have encountered before, or will be brand new?
So here's a theory that I think involved Catherine Hahn's Agnes to
Okay.
me. But this goes against sort of what I don't want to happen, which is someone else influencing the events in Scarlet Witch. Is that Agnes is the villain. She's the one that set this whole thing up. She is fully aware whoever this missing person is.
Okay.
This person is so important that Agnes wants this person, and she is using Scarlet Witch to distract and keep the attention off that person.
Okay.
The fact that Catherine Hahn seems to, at least on 2 instances, break character,
Yeah.
seems she is not fully under Wanda's mind control,
Agreed.
or at the very least can resist it.
Yeah.
Which again leads me to believe she is influencing events somehow. She is oversight. She even has control over Wanda. The last episode where she breaks character and is like, "You want me to run the line again?" Like, she almost influenced Wanda in that sense. Like, I'm supposed to be the one holding the baby. You want me to hold the baby. And then she says, yeah, okay, yeah. And then Wanda messes with Vision. So little details like that, I feel like almost seem like she is the one in charge. I don't like it as much because, again, like we talked about, it puts someone else that you can direct it's their fault. It's not Wanda's fault. It's their fault.
Mm-hmm.
And I think dramatically, I'd rather have it be Wanda. But so I don't know but Agnes is always referring to her husband Ralph, which we don't see. I think Ralph is the missing person. Whoever Ralph is, her quote unquote husband is the person she's trying to hide.
That would fit. Early on, I think even by like episode 2, like I don't know, the third, fourth time she references him, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like that. But that fits because it's also it fits the sort of some of the older sitcom tropes. You often had supporting characters who referred to other people to fill out the world, but you never needed to have that other person appear.
Right.
And it kind of fit. Okay. I'm walking the path with you.
Mike, I feel like are you piecing something together on your end?
Yeah, I shared that there for you because, I mean, so far, so much in this Marvel Cinematic Universe that we've dealt with has turned back to Hydra. And something that...
For the listeners,
Fox,
what did you just share for us?
I just shared for you just the wiki page on Madam Hydra.
So is that your theory for Agnes?
No, I actually don't share your theory.
Okay.
But you were selling me on it a bit to where if your theory is correct, I could buy them using it to introduce Madam Hydra. Hydra were the ones that originally did this to Wanda. We know that the Red Skull is kind of, the originator of Hydra and in charge of Hydra for X amount of time, and then he vanishes. And they don't really have a leader as far as we know.
So in this scenario, who is Madam Hydra? Is the person in witness protection, or are you saying that's Agnes?
That's Agnes. That would be
okay.
Agnes.
All right.
Agnes would be playing Madam Hydra, and Madam Hydra has ties to so many things. It would be interesting if Madam Hydra was like Pierce in Winter Soldier seems to be like one of the figureheads in Hydra.
Mm.
But he's not really framed as the guy. You know what I mean? Like he's framed as another cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
For Hydra, and we don't really have Hydra having a leader at that time or at any point in time. We have, the faces behind the scenes that we don't see pulling all the strings for Hydra.
Okay.
Madam Hydra perhaps has been in charge this whole time. I think it's an interesting idea, and it would be a really cool way to introduce that character. I like that, but I don't think they're going down that route.
Well, I also think that if Agnes has to be on par with Wanda, if Catherine Hahn's the villain, if they want to spin it that way, I feel like it's got to be someone else with magical powers, right? Like, are there any villainous witches?
Or Madam Hydra is controlling someone who's in the witness protection program, and she found them and used them to control Wanda.
So the missing person is the rival magic
Could
user.
be.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like Madam Hydra has powers. I mean, she's not. So to give you an idea, Madam Hydra technically, I think could do this.
Like orchestrate the whole thing.
So for your reference, do you remember the Wolverine?
Yes.
The movie, yeah.
The movie, yes. Viper, Madam Hydra, same character. Okay.
Okay.
So you remember Viper from the Wolverine?
Yeah.
Same character. She can kind of do things little bit mind control-y.
Okay.
Not She's not like a super strong in that sense, but she could do it enough to somebody else to get them to do it. Or she could be holding their family hostage and get them to do it. Or, so many possible options for her to be doing it.
Okay. I mean,
there's a lot of possibilities.
I mean, just from comic book knowledge, do you know any other like rival witches, like villainous witches in the MCU?
That could be.
Like I've heard. So
her name's Catherine Hahn, right?
Yeah.
So witches,
like some more or less someone else that's way up Scarlet Witch. So I'm just thinking witches, but someone else with the magical powers on par with Wanda's. That's on the bad side.
I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is obviously Jason Weingard, Mastermind.
Okay.
I mean, he's able to do whatever he wants, basically, if he gets the right scenario.
Yeah.
But that's not a woman. So, could he be under the control of this person? Others, like a woman that has those powers?
I mean, they could gender bend a character, too. Doesn't have to be a woman character.
You know what? Hold on. I think there is a lady mastermind.
And they've like, I
feel like I've heard of that.
I know one name I've seen thrown around the internet too. Is somehow people keep thinking Mephisto's involved. That this is Mephisto's doing.
I've been hearing that name thrown around as well. I know half the point of this is just to throw out what ifs. What if that?
Put it on record, so if we're right on any of these, we can point at it and be like, look, see, we called it.
Reagan Weingard. Jason has a sister with the same powers.
Okay. So that's that villainous witch, more or less.
Mind control.
Mind control, okay.
Like yeah.
I am still, I think, what I would prefer is that this is still mostly entirely of Wanda's construct.
Yes, I agree.
But I would also then say, if it is an explanation like we're discussing right now, how do you easily make me buy, okay, and nobody knew this person existed for the last 20 years?
Yeah. I'm just trying to, I guess in my mind, I'm trying to find ways to connect dots for details that are
Witness
there.
protection. That's how we...
Right, and I think the stuff we brought up, I think Catherine Hahn's behavior, I think the witness protection mentions and all that, I think probably will matter at some point. I just don't know if it's mattering, if it's going to be this way.
Well, let me ask you this then. If we're going to write that off as not being the reason Catherine Hahn is kind of like breaking character, if that's not it, why do you think she can get around it when other people can't? Like, what makes her different than every other person in that bubble?
Not entirely sure. Don't have a good answer for that. Even though she's been the one that they've shown it occurring to the most. Do you remember the part in, I think, episode 3 where her and the next door neighbor who ends up like hedge trimming through the cement block?
Yeah.
Because that would totally happen.
Yeah, right.
It's a hell of a hedge trimmer.
Well, again, no, because she's actually in the real world. I would say if this was really a sitcom, that wall might be made out of like high grade styrofoam. But there's a part in that scene too where the two of them are standing together. And Brian, I'm not sure if this is what you meant, but that was a moment also where I thought, like, Catherine Hahn, it's almost like she wants to tell Vision something.
Right.
She is like, she's being constricted from sharing it, but in this moment she is trying to convey something. I kind of felt the same thing about the other neighbor, that there was something going on with him in that moment. That, now, to be fair, I'd have to go back and look in that time. I think is that the moment inside the house where Monica is she brings up Ultron,
yes,
and Pietro, so maybe that's just a slip of Wanda's focus.
That's how I explained it to myself, was that she's being, her illusion is starting to shatter, and she is focusing on Monica, so she's losing control of stuff outside the house.
Okay.
And that was how I wrote that off. But in episode 5, right at the top, when Catherine Hahn literally does a different line read and tries to reshoot a scene in the middle of what's happening.
Right.
You can tell Wanda was not ready for that. No one was expecting that. Even as an audience member, you're like, what the fuck is happening? It's eerily creepy.
Yes.
And so then you think back to that first moment when she's talking to the neighbor and seems to be doing her own thing. Like those two instances, like you said, those were my two examples of her being outside of Wanda's control. I just don't know how or why.
I personally don't know if I think the explanations we've offered yet are going to be the answers, but I freely admit that I have no other creative suggestion whatsoever.
Okay.
To myself.
Yeah, I think that's a reveal yet to be had. I think we're definitely going to get that explained. It just hasn't happened yet.
I think Catherine Hahn's definitely somebody.
Yeah.
But is she the villain in this story or not? I don't know.
Right. Okay. All right. So we'll see where that one goes. Another detail I want to bring up. Monica Rambeau in the comics ends up being a superhero. So
Quasar.
Yeah. So there's an instance when she comes out of the thing at the beginning of episode 5, she's getting an MRI, and they say they can't figure out the MRI. They have to redo it. The results are not right. And you look at there's a shot of the doctor holding up a tablet, and you sort of kind of see an outline of a person, but it is bright, hot white. So maybe she's got powers now?
Maybe being forced through the barrier by Wanda.
Yeah, I couldn't explain to you why or how. Obviously something with being in the bubble and then coming back out or something, but it's funny that she's the one that somehow gets powers when other people don't. I don't know.
Hear me out on this one. Another crazy-ass theory. Inadvertently, what Wanda is currently doing creates mutants. And that's how they become a thing.
I feel like I've heard that theory, like almost a reverse M-Day.
Right. Like the inverse of it. She creates them instead of getting rid of them.
Yeah.
Just a thought. I don't necessarily think it's true, but given what you're saying, like, we don't know how Monica would have received whatever power that is, or whatever alteration to her being it is that made the MRI work that way. But if it was from Wanda doing what she did, maybe.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, you pop in the world, you get thrown through a couple walls and thrown back out the bubble, and suddenly you have superpowers, so.
I'm hoping it's also a little bit more sophisticated than that, especially given her connection to Captain Marvel and her other exposures and experiences and whatnot.
Which, did anyone catch the animosity she had towards the name Captain Marvel?
Yes.
Like, is she pissed off at Carol?
Maybe, because Carol left.
Which I could, yeah, I could see that, yeah.
You know?
Been saving the universe.
She might, yeah. I mean, but she left and presumably didn't come back.
Yeah, I'm under the impression she hasn't come back until Endgame.
Right.
Or Infinity War, whatever it is. Whenever she shows up, at the end of Infinity War.
Here's this little girl that looked up to her so much. And presumably she left her best friend there.
Yeah.
Maria is also left there without her best friend. So maybe, yeah, she could be like, oh, yeah, Aunt Carol was my Aunt Carol, and then she fucking left and didn't come back for 20 years.
Yeah.
Fuck that bitch. Like,
and there might also...
It could be.
It might also get revealed that in the timeline of things, Monica gets snapped away. Her mother passes away 2 years later, which is... at the point that she gets snapped away, that's at the time that Carol comes back. So, did she learn? Does Monica learn after she's rematerialized that Carol? Maybe she blames her, Carol, you were so powered. I'm irrationally blaming you for not saving my mother.
Oh, right.
Things like that. She was your friend, etc. Who knows?
Had you got involved sooner, you could have stopped
something
this.
like that. Yeah, all those kinds of things are easy to take on. But yeah, I'm hoping they kind of peel the layers away on that too.
Just you bring it up, Josh, made me think about it. The opening of episode 4 with the unsnap was fucking amazing.
I loved that. Absolutely loved that. Until the ending of episode 5, I was like, holy shit, this was the most creative thing I've seen them do in years. That was so cool.
It's such a different tonal shift from what we got in Far From Home.
Yes.
Far From Home was like, look how funny this is. People just popping back into existence. And this is like the real world. Like, if you're running around and shit like this is happening, how do you react to that?
Yes.
Yeah, the Far From Home, the band coming back during the basketball game, that's funny. But I think they had this thought, and don't take it the wrong way, but we have COVID going on, and hospitals are overpacked.
Yeah.
And it very easily could have influenced this whole idea that if all these people suddenly came back, they're all still sick. If they were sick and they got snapped away, they're still sick.
Yeah.
They're not magically better. They're just back to where they were before. And now we have all these people that were sick 5 years ago we still have to deal with, and all the people that... And so it would just cause mass chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At first. And
I love just showing that...
Depicting that was awesome.
That very individualized nature of... obviously disorientation, confusion. The idea that like
they don't know what
their
happened.
Consciousness, they weren't even aware it occurred.
Yeah,
that's what I thought was so
Peter,
freaking cool.
In Endgame, Peter talks about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we weren't there, and then we were,
right.
and then the Doctor Strange guy was doing the thing, and we're all back, and he has no idea what happened, and they get that a little bit, but again, they go the comedy route as opposed to the real world route, and showing that was great. Can I also say the animation was awesome that they put on it for showing them rematerialize out of the, I guess, ashes or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. That was an awesome animation, and yeah, very well done.
Yeah, it was more or less just like, hey, let's just bring attention to that because it was fucking cool.
That was a great idea.
One of the detail I think that Monica Rambeau talks about in episode 5, and again, at this point I'm just wondering like who else is going to pop up in this show. They're talking about how to penetrate the shell of the world, and she talks about needing specific material to create a device or a vehicle or something to get in there, and she suggests a friend of hers that is an aerospace engineer. Any idea? Assuming that's an MCU-related character, or at least a Marvel character, maybe one we haven't seen before.
An arrow. I mean, that could go a lot of ways.
Will they do Reed Richards?
I don't think he gets introduced on this show.
Yeah, because I that was my gut reaction was Reed Richards, but I think you're right. I think the movie is too far off. John Watts is doing Spider-Man 3. If he is involved with Fantastic Four, he would have to have a cast for that.
Yeah, and we would hear about who Reed Richards is going to be if he was cast. They wouldn't be able to keep that under wraps. You would know they cast Mr. Fantastic. So I'll throw one out there for you since it's possible, because again, canonically speaking, with Sword, Beast is one of the heads of Sword.
So Hank McCoy.
Maybe I would say is a possibility. I mean, it could be Nicholas Hoult.
Oh, well. Yeah, well, I guess at the rate we're going.
But yeah, you could get a Hank McCoy introduced here because he is... In the last of the comics I read was Sword, Hank McCoy, Beast, whatever you want to call him, was one of the two people in charge of Sword.
Yeah.
Like, there was two of them. He was working on the space station that Sword had. As, like, I don't know what title. Director, something like that.
Yeah.
But he had transferred away from the Avengers and into Sword.
I don't in a million years think this is what is going to happen, but the story idea occurred to me, and I kind of like it. You guys can tell me if I shouldn't. But what if it was a Loki that you didn't even get a full name, and it for all the same reasons that you just said that it wouldn't be Reed Richards, but what if she just introduces her colleague as Victor?
Oh, yeah. Well,
was he ever an engineer, though? Was he, like... I always felt like Victor was just the money behind stuff.
I mean,
He had
as
some sort of
opposed to-
scientific background, right?
I mean,
he
you
was
could
supposed to be.
make him. You could reinvent him as like an Elon Musk type character. He's a somewhat knowledgeable, enterprising, you know, angel investor and all that. You know, a futurist and everything. And you just
Okay.
you'd have the same casting problem because you would have had to basically choose who your Doctor Doom is going to be.
We also don't know that their first Fantastic Four movie is going to be Doom, so they could just introduce Victor
Well,
here.
that's true, but you still would have to commit basically to that casting quite a time in advance. But at the same time, you get that little layer right there, and maybe he's only in there for like an episode or two, and doesn't show up again until like in passing in somewhere else, and that could be a really cool low key way, no pun intended, to. I don't want to like say like cement him as like your next Loki, but like you get to build something like your Doctor Doom over time, as opposed to just it's Fantastic Four and look at this problem.
And, granted, casting for the movie probably is far off, but at the rate that they are dropping reveals and surprises in this show, I would not put it past them to know who they're going to cast, have them booked up, and be like, hey, you want to tease your, if they just someone popped up like that in this show, I don't think it's likely, but I also don't think it's impossible. I could definitely see them doing something like that.
Yeah.
If Viggo Mortensen walks on the screen, they don't have to tell me the name. They wouldn't have to say Victor. They could just say, this is him. And it's like, yep, that's fucking Dr. Doom right there.
Yeah.
That's, yep, good job. But
yeah, I don't really
we'll
have
see.
any other, like Reed Richards was my gut reaction. I don't think I'm right there, but that's the first name that pops in my head. I can't really think of anybody else that might fit that bill.
It's the same thing with him. If John Krasinski comes up on screen, you don't need the name. You could just, we did it.
Yeah, I can't.
We did what you guys asked for.
At this point, I can't tell if. The Infinity Saga is over, and even though the first project right after it is still related to an Infinity Stone and all of that, I can't yet tell if what we're supposed to be, getting breadcrumbs thrown in front of us for is here. Like we're giving you clues to things, but is it all the brand new stuff that's going to be coming in phase 4, 5, 6, and we're starting that new foundation, or do we want you to put together, like we got Darcy back after 9 years? Like, is it somebody that we're calling back from the past that, will be fun to rejoin? So, like, that's what I can't tell. And if it's like brand new characters, then there's no reason that we should really know at all, other than like I said, outside of just wild ass guesses like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, aerospace engineer is very specific.
True.
Well, I feel like this is just scientist. Like, you could, a scientist character, you could put whatever title you want on the scientist and just say, hey, this is our scientist from the MCU or from Marvel.
No, I guess I was thinking of it in terms of, like, a lot of the characters that we've already dealt with have already been given kind of specific titles. Like, we know Selvig is in a whatever he is.
Right, but I'm just thinking, like...
he's been given a title, Jane's been given a title.
But if you go to, like, Jane's comic book title for scientist, is it the same exact one they use in the movie, is what I'm getting at. So, like, you just pull a scientist character from the comics and just...
No, I'm saying if we're going to see somebody we've already seen, is what I'm saying.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Most of them have been given...
I'm thinking new characters.
Specific jobs. With new characters, I agree. It could be, like, they could just say Reed Richards is an aerospace engineer.
Okay.
Even though he's not, they could say that. But for characters we've seen, I don't... Like, it would be cool to get a callback, but I don't think so, just because...
And, Selvig and, like, Jane crossed my mind, but at the same time, why wouldn't Darcy be like, oh, I know people? Like, it's specifically Monica that's calling attention to, like, hey, I know someone like this. So it wouldn't be Jane or Selvig.
So, thought on that. What if she calls in, what was his name? Kalos.
Oh, the Skrull, yeah. Talos, yeah.
Talos. Yeah.
My science guy.
Yeah. I could...
Yes, and he's not going to be there as a Skrull. He's going to show up as... Well, last we saw him was Nick Fury, so I doubt he's going to be Nick Fury, but he could show up as... Yeah, he could show up as somebody else, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good just to, like, have him not be... what's that actor's name?
Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, have it not be Ben Mendelsohn that he's there as, but have the voice be Ben Mendelsohn, so you know.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's probably the best guess we've got so far, I think. Yeah. What? Oh, okay. So the kids, Tommy and Billy. Are we going to say they are alive?
I don't know on that one.
Same. I have nothing concrete that I would stick to. I would reverse every opinion I have 2 seconds later.
I'm also unsure. Are they immune to her powers? Do they have powers of their own? Like, the stuff that's happening to them, is it her doing it to them? Or is it them doing it to themselves?
I guess that depends on your opinion if they're real or not.
Yeah.
Because if they're real, they might be doing it to themselves. If they're not, she's doing it.
Okay. Yeah, that's
She
fair.
could still be doing it if they're real, but they might be doing it to themselves if they are.
Because it almost
If they're
seems like
not real, it's all
if
just
she's
her.
doing it, it's got to be subconsciously. Because she almost doesn't seem like she wants them to age, and yet they're just doing it anyway.
Which you could, like, if you really then like play the psychologist, is that a manifestation of her working out her own shit about how she would react to stress and problems and et cetera,
Right.
et cetera.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I'll buy that.
But in terms of the basic question, I got no clue.
So we could dive into the reveal now. I have a couple other questions, but more of them are just like, where do we see the end of the show going type of thing. So I kind of want to hit this before we get to theories of where this could go.
Theory. Okay.
So we'll dive into that and talk about it. So prior to watching this episode, I feel like I was planning to ask, like, we started talking about this, like, recording this episode when episode 4 was out, before episode 5 happened. We were going to plan to watch 5 and then talk about it. And in the outline, I had started to prepare for watching up to episode 4. I was going to ask the question, do you think we're out of the realm of possibility to see Quicksilver come back into the show? And I
really?
Literally Friday morning was joking with someone at work about the same thing, saying, like, wouldn't it be funny if they brought Quicksilver back, but, like, it was the wrong Quicksilver, like the one from the X-Men movies. And I laughed it off because I figured there's no way in hell that they would do this. And then they fucking did it, and it broke me because I feel like there are so many implications to this reveal that was so expertly done. I don't even know where to begin, but I don't know. Josh, where do you want about this? Because you dressed up as Quicksilver for Halloween, so this is right in your wheelhouse.
I liked that guy's costume, so somehow I have valuable insight to offer. No, it like something like this never occurred to me. I think as much as they started dropping Pietro's name in the last couple episodes, I thought, oh, maybe there's the possibility that Aaron Taylor Johnson might,
yes,
you know, pop in some kind of depression illusion kind of thing. When she opened the door at the end of the episode, Sarah and I both said, like, you just see that look on her face. Which, quick sidebar, I think Elizabeth Olsen is freaking killing this show.
Agreed. Yes,
she is. Like Paul Bettany is doing great, but so much of the juggling, controlling insanity and a non-world construct and conveying that as an actor, like, I think she's doing amazing.
And hitting all the tropes of the old sitcom TV shows and everything too, just the way line delivery and all that stuff,
which were great. And then it as the illusion starts to fall apart, her acting is being challenged even more, and she's nailing every moment.
Yeah.
And that the most recently, specifically, that look that she has on her face when she opens that door before you see anything. You're just looking at her, looking at whoever she's seeing. Another moment where I'm like, holy shit. And Sarah and I both said to each other, is it Pietro? Like, who else could have her react this way? She's not fearful. She's not surprised in a way, but she is. Like, she's literally, like, almost at a loss for words. Almost like it's outside of her. I mean, we've talked so much, like, it was outside of her design.
Yeah.
Like, almost like this was not part of her plan or her idea. But yeah, then when they pan from the back and you see the hair, from behind, like, oh shit, Aaron Taylor, wait a minute, what the frick?
Yep.
And you saw Evan Peters, we lost our shit. We're like, oh, my brain just broke. And I, like, a couple minutes after it was over, I realized my walking between two worlds diagram is like this was it. Like, this broke it. There's no way to do this anymore.
It was the same sort of thought process for me. It's like, okay, first doorbell rings and I'm like, oh, here's Agnes again. What has she got for us here?
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, she opens the door and pauses, and I'm like, would they do it? It's got to be Quicksilver, right? And then you see the hair, and I'm like, okay, he's here. They did it. They brought him back. Let's see what they do now. And then when you see Quicksilver from X-Men, the same thing. My brain broke because then I'm suddenly like, wait, that's not the one I wanted. He's from this movie. Wait, does that mean these movies are all connected? Wait, what does that mean for the X-Men as a whole?
Yeah.
And you just go down the rabbit hole of like what does this mean for the MCU? Is this just a fun meta joke that they want to do just to say, look, we acknowledge we're having fun with this. We understand, we can play around with two different Quicksilvers and that kind of thing. Or is this something that is supposed to lead towards having the X-Men and mutants in the MCU? And if it goes down that rabbit hole, if he's the one that comes in, does that mean we get the most recent cast of X-Men carried over into the MCU? Are we going to see Fassbender, McAvoy, the younger X-Men that they used in Dark Phoenix? Are those going to be the ones that they want to pull from for this stuff? I would rather see a whole new cast, but the fact that they've already brought one over, what are they going to do with the rest of them?
So first, for me, what I would say is I'm shocked that they didn't cliffhanger that moment of who she sees at the door.
Oh, I'm glad they
100%
didn't.
thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to credits when she makes the face, and you're like, we're getting credits here. We're not going to see who it is. They're going to let us wait a week. But then you remember, like, this is, I guess, is one of the good things. They don't have to cliffhanger this show. Everybody's coming back next week anyways. This is the MCU. This is their own service. You're there for this stuff. They're not running that old sitcom kind of formula where they have to do stuff like that. I'd applaud that. I like that.
Yeah.
In terms of what you were saying, does this mean what happens? What happens with the other X-Men? What happens with that? One, I think this is the break in the universes that's going to lead to, that speculated multiverse in Spider-Man. I think this is maybe further confirmation of all those rumors about Spider-Man. I think this lends a lot of credence to that. Because before, breaking the multiverse just meant that she could maybe get Vision back, or maybe you could have a different version of Mark Ruffalo's Hulk show up or something. But now it means a different cinematic universe is officially open to their multiverse. To me.
Yeah.
That opens that door. So does that mean that you're going to see Fassbender and McAvoy and Nicholas Hoult and all them? No, I don't think so. I think they chose the most popular thing that was left over from those movies, being Quicksilver, because his scenes in Days of Future Past and Apocalypse are the two best scenes they made in all four of those movies with Fassbender and McAvoy.
And he's also the one commonality.
Yeah, I don't think it's popularity that he's there. I mean,
it helps. I'm sure that helped. But yeah, he's that one singular overlap where they literally had the same character in two different places.
True.
You know what I mean?
But, I mean, the overlap can also be Magneto. It could have been her dad standing there, and they don't call him Magneto. She just says Papa.
Well, no, but it was the only character that you already had established and existed in both worlds.
Yeah, her dad exists in both. Maybe she sees Fassbender as her dad.
But he's not Magneto in the MCU.
That's what I mean. We've had a Quicksilver.
Exactly.
We've had a Quicksilver
but
already in
it's
both
still
places.
Her dad. Do you get what I'd be saying here? Like, Fassbender shows up, and that's...
You're saying we've never seen pictures of her dad in the MCU, so for all we know, her dad in the MCU is Fassbender.
Right. So Fassbender shows up at the door, and it's the same kind of thing.
Like an unpowered Magneto, but just played by Fassbender.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't think that achieves the same thing as it being Quicksilver, because it's literally the only actual character.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
But I lost my train of thought. that
We broke
side
Mike.
road took me up. So I guess the other thing is, there's a way this show gets a 0 out of 10 from me on my final review. And that's if we don't get a 90s Quicksilver montage moment at some point, because we've had 70s, we've had 80s, and we're leading toward the 90s on this show at this point. We're almost there.
And we never really got, I mean, Dark Phoenix was abysmal, and we never really got anything like a good Quicksilver scene in that, even though I guess it was kind of supposed to be the 90s. But
yeah, we didn't get the Quicksilver
we didn't,
scene,
right.
Like, it was... So, give me a 90s song. I wanted to ask you guys both this. So we get the 90s thing. What song do we need Quicksilver running around to?
Oh, Jesus. I don't know.
Oh.
I just wanted to put you guys on the spot for it. 90s song for a Quicksilver montage. Or not montage, but whatever you want to call those scenes.
Okay, so what did we get so far in Days of Future Past? I forget what the song was.
Isn't it,
Like Time in a Bottle or something?
Yeah, Time in a Bottle.
Okay, and then it was Sweet Dreams.
Yeah.
In the 80s. So it doesn't necessarily... I mean, Time in a Bottle is a little bit more on the nose thematically with time. But
Hootie and the
doesn't
Blowfish.
Have to be.
Time.
Like, I'm trying to think of one that would really fit well for the aesthetic, and it would feel really cool, but it doesn't necessarily have to fit the theme or the sound per se. I don't know, for some reason I couldn't tell you why Sponge's Plowed came to mind immediately.
I don't even know how that song goes. I'm going to have to Google it after this.
If the moment you hear it, you're like, oh, that's what that song is. I didn't know that's who it was by and what it was called. You'll know it immediately. It's like 1994, I think.
I feel like now this one just popped into my head for no apparent reason, but I feel like it could work if we're going like a dark, depressing type of element whenever this scene happens. But Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be kind of missing the tone of what his scenes usually are, but it could work. Yeah, I mean it.
All right, this is our challenge after, like, between for us and listeners, when this goes up on social media and you see the posts about this is what we want the comments filled with.
Yeah, see, we'll do all this, and there will be no scene with Quicksilver doing this. It'll be for no apparent reason, but it'll still be fun.
Because everybody who leaves a suggestion, I'm going to make my own scene in my head based on what you give me, and I'm going to love them all. So, gimme.
See, the one that came to my mind and still does, When I Come Around, Green Day.
Ooh.
I think that would be fun. I think it fits thematically. I think everything would work. It would be cool.
I like it.
So, Mike, I think you started answering about like if we'd see the X-Men cast from Fox over.
I think it opens the door for them to do what they want. Pull from another reality, because again, this is another thing that happened in the X-Men that maybe you guys don't know about, because I know you guys don't read as many of the comics as I do. But there was a time in the last 8 years, I would say. Part of me wants to say it started in 2012 or 2013 or 2014. Something right in that range. Okay. There was actually a multiversy kind of thing that happened with the X-Men that brought the entire original team into at their young ages. You know what I mean? So you had Cyclops, Jean, Iceman, Beast, and Angel. Brought at their young ages into the current Marvel universe. Meeting their older selves. You know what I mean? Like the other versions of themselves still existed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there is a little bit of precedence for having different versions of X-Men present at the same time. But I guess what happens is they actually get stuck here in like the current Marvel universe, and they can't go back.
Okay.
Something happens. I can't remember the exact specifics, but something happens and they end up stuck. So you actually have the potential for both to happen for a period of time where, maybe you have some of them turn up because of the multiverse stuff and meet other versions of themselves.
But I also feel like at the rate we're going, that this problem will be fixed before we get a proper X-Men movie. So we haven't really met.
They don't have to be X-Men yet to meet. Like they could come from the other universe. You understand what I'm saying? And they could meet. They could end up like running into other versions of themselves, or you could meet the versions of the X-Men that maybe they're not X-Men yet. Maybe mutants are still hiding their powers. Or maybe Xavier just makes it so nobody knows that they exist because he can do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, to see where you're going, I don't know if I don't feel like we'd see it. I feel like we'd have to have the connection with whatever MCU version of the X-Men is before we do something like that.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess the point I was getting at is when you open up this multiverse idea, and the reason they're calling that movie The Multiverse of Madness is because anything can happen. It's a multiverse. It's pulling shit from different universes, and you're kind of bending the rules, which you normally would have to operate under.
Well, I'll spin it to you, Josh. Do you think we'll see Fox's X-Men, more of them in the MCU, or is this a one-off with Quicksilver?
Depending, I mean, do you think like by the end of this show, or in general before
we
get to like the X-Men proper?
Yeah.
I think it's all going to depend on how this plays out. I think I think you'll know by the end of this series. So 4 more weeks, you'll know whether the speculation or the idea around a reverse House of M storyline happens or not, and whether you see the result of that for a while or not is yet to be determined.
Yeah.
But I think you'll know by the end of this whether the events of this are the thing that cause, mutants to, quote, evolve and come to existence, etc., however they're going to pull it.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to do mutants in a multiverse idea. I don't. But because I think there's a big vacuum for them to fill now that you don't have an Iron Man and you don't have a Cap. There's space on Earth to fill.
Yeah.
So if by the end of this, it is apparent that could be, that's a rational explanation, then I think you could start to see them peppered in minor capacities throughout some of the rest of the stories.
Some of the X-Men.
So, yes.
Okay.
Which would then build to something bigger of, a, quote, team up or a gelling of Xavier with the recruits or the X-Men or whatever it is.
And you're still thinking new cast, right? Nothing pre-existing.
I do. Yeah, I
Okay.
think Evan Peters is the exception just because of the unique situation that the character of Quicksilver lies within those two universes. But I think you go all new cast, and not to be mean, but I'm shocked. I don't know if they were already under contract. I'm very surprised that some of those people came back for Dark Phoenix at all.
Yeah.
And it had to have left a bad taste in their mouth. So on the one hand, maybe they would not be eager to come back. On the other, maybe they're like, oh God, okay, finally Disney's in charge of it. We can do a quality one again.
I feel like if they came back, it would be that. Like someone else is in charge. We can actually play with the other heroes that we've seen in, like, if they do any type of research reading the comics, the X-Men deal with the Avengers and talk to other characters in the Marvel universe and stuff like that. So if it's like, okay, well now we can be part of something that's part of the MCU proper, we might actually be able to have fun with all these other actors that are having fun playing these characters. Like that would be a draw, I would think, to get someone to come back. Whether or not they'd want them to come back, that's the bigger question. I think I'm with Josh. I think it'd be much easier and better for us as the audience to just wipe the slate clean, start over, give us, the MCU version of what the X-Men is. And sort of, I guess to Mike's point, if they cast all new for the X-Men, it would be fun seeing the Fox X-Men somehow interact with the MCU X-Men. But if they fix the multiverse before we get to X-Men, I don't think that's going to happen. Which I feel like as far as the timeline, we're going to get there before. before that.
So, I mean, for me personally, like, if they want to keep McAvoy and Fassbender and ask us to suspend our disbelief and just accept it, I'm fine with that. I think both of them were doing a fantastic job as it was, and I'm completely on board with just letting them continue. Whether the story's new or their character storylines are new, they both did such a good job.
Yeah.
Will they come back? Probably not. But I'd be okay with those ones coming back and just being like, okay, all of them? No, I don't want all of them back. There's some of them that definitely need recast, that were not cast well to begin with.
Yeah.
And they weren't handled well. I mean, as cool as it was to have like, oh yeah, we cast Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse, and you're like, oh, that might be really good, and then they completely just screwed that.
Yeah.
So do I want to see Oscar Isaac back as Apocalypse and have him locked into that? Well, no, we already know he's not.
Yeah.
He's already been cast in this universe. So I'm good with that. I guess the question that it comes to my mind, though, when it comes to all of this. So if we're not going to see them introduced at any point as the other X-Men and whatnot, what are the chances that they pull a Don Cheadle with this one, and he's not meant to be from a different universe, and it's me now. It's a retcon. It's a recast.
You could have thought that, but I think Darcy's line of like, "Hey, they recast Pietro," which was so deliciously meta that it was. Yeah. I laughed for like a solid 2 minutes. But no, I think like they're aware.
That's true. She does say that. I forgot she said that.
Because it fits the context so well.
Yeah. So no, I don't think the other sort of spinoff from that is not that they're going to recast the MCU version of Quicksilver, but now I feel like there's a possibility we could get Aaron Taylor-Johnson in there with Evan Peters.
Both as Quicksilver or both as Pietro?
If she... Obviously, Evan Peters' Quicksilver is not from our MCU. He has to have come from another multiverse. So if she... Going along the line of thought that she can bring people back from the dead, maybe she actually could bring back Aaron Taylor-Johnson. That is our Quicksilver, our MCU Quicksilver.
Or, as I said before, her powers can be kind of a monkey's paw. And maybe she tried, and this is what she got instead. Because, again, her powers work that way sometimes. She tries something, and it kind of works, but doesn't happen exactly the way she planned.
Yeah, I guess I could see it. Part of me is just like really sad then for Aaron Taylor-Johnson. It's like, hey, we're going to bring your character back, the one that you played, but nope, you're not going to play him. We're going to give it to somebody else. Like, that's a kick in the dick.
Well, I'm just speaking canonically. Like, I feel bad for him if that's the case, but at the same time, to me, it's like, that's kind of, that is what her powers do. Again, she can say something and have it become real.
Yeah.
But it's not always as real or as accurate as exactly what she said. So maybe by saying, I want Pietro back, maybe that's what she says in her mind to do this. She gets a Pietro from a different
So we're still framing it as her powers that are doing this, not someone influencing her somewhere and sending a Pietro to her.
I mean,
the fact that she's so caught off guard, there's two explanations. Either she did it by accident and didn't realize what she did, or someone did it for her.
Right. Or there's just a tear in reality somewhere that's unrelated. And it's causing other problems elsewhere, caused by something else. And it is part of what's causing the issues here. Just complete, like it exists. We don't know where, I mean, we haven't been told about it yet, obviously.
See, I still think she's the one that caused the tear.
I think that's, I agree. I'm just throwing it out as a possibility for their storytelling that there's an unrelated to her tear in reality, and she's experiencing the effects of that. Maybe the tear in reality resulted from Endgame and what happened. Maybe something went wrong.
But again, that's like, putting the consequences on, or the effect on someone else. It's not her fault. I want this to be her fault.
I understand that, but whatever, we don't know what their in-game story for this is. We don't know what their plot points are. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so it could be both still. Like, it could have been she noticed this terror in reality and she just took advantage of it because it was an option.
So
Okay.
that part I don't have a missing an element there, but it could it make sense in what they've established that again she had a physical framework, if you will, to start with Vision. At the very least, one way or another, somewhere, some way, Wanda has a hold of his corpse.
Yeah.
Whether the thing we're seeing is her puppeteering that corpse or she still has it stowed away somewhere else, yet to be determined, etc. She started with a physical thing. If she is able to manipulate that physical thing into puppeteering it, or if she's able to somehow use it to aid her construction of, you know, a physical projection of Vision inside the Hex, could it stand a reason that subconsciously, because he's been being discussed so much, she wanted to manifest Pietro back, but she didn't have a physical substance to aid. She didn't have that extra element to start with, so therefore she got a distorted version of him.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right. I would buy that too.
And there's still that missing element entirely of like, well, okay, if it was subconscious, she doesn't seem to have done it on purpose, and is someone else pulling the strings, etc. Yeah, those still might be unanswered factors. But
Well, I think that's one of the clues of the unraveling. Like, whatever she did to start this world to get Vision back, she was in control of from the start. However, it's getting to the point where this is becoming bigger than her, and she's losing control of her own creation. And I think we're seeing the cracks of that now, which is how Pietro just shows up because she's thought about him 2 or 3 times now. Like, and I think it's going to get to the point where this is going to get so, like, the town itself is going to get out of control. Possibly the Hex is going to grow and start my theory, start consuming other pieces of the world to the point where it's like, we have to stop this or the entire Earth is going to be in trouble. And I think that's how you would set up Doctor Strange. It becomes it becomes a bigger problem than just a localized town, and suddenly more things and people are in jeopardy. And whether Doctor Strange gets word of it and pops up or is called in to help, which I guess lends to another question I was going to sort of lead to too, is do you think with Doctor Strange, or with her being in Doctor Strange 2, will we see Doctor Strange before the end of this series is over?
Was it 8 episodes or 10?
9.
It's 9.
Released over 8 weeks, but 9.
Maybe at the very end.
Yeah, I'm thinking if we see him, it's got to be like the finale.
Yeah, like the end of the finale, I would say, even. Like him like being like, okay, it's time for me to be here.
Yeah.
I'll handle this kind of thing. Like, it's gotten out of your control.
Well, do you think he's going to have to put her down?
Put her down?
Like, disable or...
Do you think he could?
I think that's a battle I'd like to see.
It might be fun, but, I mean, to be fair, nobody that exists in the MCU at this point is powerful enough to handle her, except herself.
Yeah.
Nobody that currently exists. There are beings in the Marvel, comic universe that can handle it, but Doctor Strange is not one of them for her. Not what they've made her.
Yeah, because I feel like I could see it. If she's involved in Doctor Strange, we don't know if she is an ally or a villain in that movie. If this gets that bad, do you think she could be the antagonist of Doctor Strange 2?
I think she could be the antagonist, but not the villain.
Okay.
I was gonna say I think I've already seen that they cast the villain.
Okay. I did not hear that.
I want to say, the last I had heard at some point that they had cast a villain for that. And I'm not going to spoil
Yeah, I don't know
it
if I want to get into that yet.
Or anything. But as far as I know, they had cast somebody.
Okay.
But I might be wrong. Might be recalling that they casted somebody as a villain somewhere, and I'm seeing it, and it's from a different movie or something.
All right, so this is sort of where I just want to... We can try to wrap it up with this type of stuff. It's sort of like...
Can I ask one more question before that? So there's something we didn't address that has happened. So episode 5, they show her steal the body of Vision, right? They said where it was?
Sword headquarters somewhere.
So it was at Sword headquarters somewhere. And they've moved into robotics, they said. Perhaps from their research on Vision's corpse.
I thought about that too, because they've had his body for 5 years.
Right. And perhaps also then leading to a re-emergence of Ultron, which happens every time in the damn comics the same way. They start messing with stuff, and they end up creating Ultron again. And it may be a minor reappearance, or you may get an appearance instead of an unrealized, somewhat lesser version of Ultron that we got in Age of Ultron. You may get a more powerful and realized great Ultron type. There is 2 different kind of versions of Ultron.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are necessarily aware of that, but there's Ultron and there's Great Ultron. And you may see that kind of just like, to me, like Vision and Ultron are tied together no matter what. You know, because one created the other from themselves and into the other and all that. So maybe they screw up something further down the line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This isn't something I see happening anytime soon, but I could see it being something that tangentially maybe the Fantastic Four have to deal with.
Okay.
You know what I mean? As like a maybe not the major villain per se, but something that they become aware of and figure out how to deal with. Because if I remember correctly, when like Ultron gets out of hand in the comics, they end up just letting him be his own being, but shipping him off into space. And Ultron kind of becomes its own planet.
Okay.
So I could see, you know, that having something that they have to deal with and do that is used as a thread. More so than as like Ultron coming back as a full-on villain for another movie, because why would they do that with their least successful Avengers movie?
Yeah.
So I don't see them doing that, but it's a story thread that they could work with.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to
Ultron
retcon it
trying
somewhere
to
and just
come
bring him
back
back,
and
just
failing.
point to that and say, hey, this is what we did.
Well, I mean, just like, or Ultron trying to come back and failing. You know what I mean? Like, they start to recognize that Ultron's attempting to reemerge.
Yeah.
And it could, I don't know, it could be like a story thread they use at some point. But it also could be something completely different because of what they're doing with the robotics and Vision and all that with Sword. It would be interesting to see if what route they might go.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, their change in direction to robotics and stuff like that, I just kind of started piecing it together that they just reverse engineered stuff from Vision's body to make the tech they're using.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see where it goes. But sort of trying to just wrap up the discussion and bleeding into Doctor Strange 2, sort of what do you see, and I should have looked up, but I don't remember how far between the end of the series and Doctor Strange 2 we have, and what movies are in between there. I think we got a couple years in between, but
not
sort of
as far. I think Doctor Strange is now set for some time next year.
Is it really? I thought it was 20.
Yeah,
I guess 2022 is next year now. Huh?
Yeah, it was originally. I mean, it had things gone as normal. It would have we would be getting Shang-Chi right now, and then Doctor Strange was supposed to be May, and then COVID, like the final shift around. I want to say, I think Doctor Strange might be. It's like
Doctor Strange is March 25th, 2022.
March of next year. Okay.
So in between, you've got the Spider-Man movie, Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow.
All right, so the only one we
And I
think could be
believe
affected is
3 of those. Go ahead.
No,
sorry.
I'm just thinking, just out loud. Like the only one we've heard rumors of multiverse consequences would probably be Spider-Man. I don't think we've heard too much of the other ones having any type of issues with that.
And they were also originally slated to release before this. Like all the Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals were all supposed to come out last year,
Right.
And this was not supposed to be out.
Yeah, which leads me to believe that they don't really give a shit about they have less fallout from what this show does. They wanted to make sure this got out to kickstart whatever's coming next.
Yeah.
for some of the bigger stuff.
I mean, it could have just been I think it's going to have threads that tie into the other shows and such, and maybe to Eternals. Maybe there was something at the end of Eternals that led into this that we're going to get a backward explanation on instead. I don't see it really like affecting Shang-Chi or Black Widow at all.
Well, Black Widow is like a period piece anyway, so...
Right. Yeah, but Spider-Man, definitely possible.
All right, so that in mind, so spinning any type of theories we got for the end of this series, how maybe it ends, and how that would spin off into affecting Spider-Man 3 and into Doctor Strange. Because again, we know Wanda is cast in Doctor Strange. They will be back. We don't know at what capacity. Doctor Strange 2 is called the Multiverse of Madness, so there's some multiverse shit going on. I don't know. What do you guys got? More or less, how much of this show do you think will wrap up, and how much will they lead into other movies?
I think it just based on what you guys just said, they assessed with the delay what is important for foundation building as we start the pre-Infinity Saga era. And
Post-Infinity Saga.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
So the fact that they decided, production-wise, we have this in the can. This is not meant to be a theater movie, so we're not worried about, continuing to delay it, et cetera, et cetera. And now as we reorder things, we need to make sure that this is out first. I think there's a couple, like, sub-story plots within the show that would be, like, kind of satisfactorily answered, that you could pull the taffy on, but you don't really need to. But I think this is, like, ground zero for at least a big pillar of Phase 4.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you're going to see... I don't think, whatever problem she causes, or whatever problem is it there at the end of this that's causing reality to be warped or torn apart or whatever, is going to be resolved. I think that's going to lead into them resolving the problems in these movies, and perhaps little residual problems showing up in those movies. Yeah. Again, we have casting and stuff from those movies that we've heard about that we kind of know leads toward that.
Yeah.
So it seems to add up pretty well.
Yeah, I my best guess is that, and I'm trying to decide if more or less, I guess, what happens to Vision. I feel like Vision does not make it out of this series, if I had to guess, and I think maybe to the realization for Wanda that Vision is finally dead. She accepts the fact that he's dead, but at that point, the damage is done to whatever she did to the multiverse. And then at that point, it's just repairing the damage she did. Maybe the show, by the end of it, some other big event happens that finally pushes it to the MCU as a whole, that problems are happening. You're seeing it and hearing about it other places. And at that point, she's accepted Vision is gone. She's sort of dealt with her 5 stages of grief over the loss of him and can finally get back to work and maybe starts working with Doctor Strange to fix the problems she caused. And also keep in mind, we still have a Loki series in between all this stuff, too.
Actually, we have Falcon and Winter Soldier first.
Right, but I feel like that would be less involved with the multiverse
Oh, I see.
stuff.
Yes.
I think Loki, the preview that we saw, seems like he bounces around all over the place. So is that because of the cracks that Wanda is causing in the multiverse? Is he bouncing around in the multiverse because of stuff that she is doing? Is that another effect of her cause?
I mean, he could be causing the cracks because he's bouncing all over the place trying to...
He has the Space Stone from his timeline.
Right, yeah, because this... Oh, that could be... I forgot he has the stone that makes you teleport places, so that could work too.
And this is peak evil Loki as well, remember?
Right.
Because this is the Loki that was arrested at the end of Avengers.
Yeah.
This is not, the redeemed Loki at that point. This is still him doing whatever the hell he wants for selfish reasons.
Yeah.
So maybe they're both messing things up. Maybe it's just getting worse and worse because of both of them doing this.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So again, the rumors around Spider-Man, there's a bunch of multiverse implications for Spider-Man 3. Doctor Strange takes place after that, so maybe they wrap up the multiverse by the end of Doctor Strange 2, and maybe it's finally, you could close that. I really thought maybe they'd wrap it up or deal with some of that stuff in an Avengers movie, but there's no next Avengers movie announced. So I imagine that's not going to wrap up anytime. Like, they might try to wrap it up before that.
Yeah, they said currently they have no Avengers movie scheduled for Phase 4.
Yeah.
They said no Avengers in Phase 4. It's not coming as a movie.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what that means. To me, it sounds like they're trying to position Benedict Cumberbatch to kind of take over that leading role that plays between multiple movies the way Robert Downey Jr. did.
I mean, if the multiverse wraps up, if that issue wraps up in Doctor Strange, I feel like that would bookend Phase 4, right?
So you're saying,
like, if this show starts
you're talking,
and they close it up by the end of Doctor Strange, that would be Phase 4.
Maybe, but I don't personally see like way their schedule is that being that way, because I mean 2 months later Thor: Love and Thunder comes out.
Oh, fair. Okay. Yeah.
And then Black Panther 2 is also scheduled for 2 months after that.
I wonder what, because normally it's like sort of like an overarching thing, I almost feel like, but yeah, all right.
Well, didn't we discuss something that you had mentioned that they were looking at? Where we had talked about Kang the Conqueror perhaps being a thing.
Is he multiverse related? I mean, I'm trying to remember now.
He's been around for so much shit. It's probably at some point. I can't specifically speak to like, yes, definitely this, but I mean, Kang has been around since like the early Marvel. Yeah, I mean, like mid-60s.
Yeah. All right, so maybe the multiverse stuff is more clear and present danger for the MCU, and then Kang can be just after that, somewhere down the line, if they want to go that route.
Well, in a lot of ways, Kang is an opportunist.
Okay.
So he's the type of villain who's very powerful, but will see an opportunity to strike and take it.
Yeah. So
he may see a weakness or something he can exploit going on with this multiverse stuff, and I don't know, do something with it.
Josh, did you want to say something?
I forget.
Okay, I thought you were going to chime in with something, and then make sure we got you in.
Yeah, it probably wasn't important.
I just want to bring attention to it because I think it's a really fun idea. And I feel like I was texting Josh some of the tweets and stuff too. But there might actually be something in the works to get, and I pulled up the tweets. Who was the tweet from? Stephen Ford on Twitter, as far as I can tell, originated this idea, where January 30th, he tweeted out, "Hear me out, an entire Disney Plus show about Jimmy Woo just working weird cases in the MCU, just like a fun X-Files. Let's make it happen." This started making the rounds on the internet to the point where 7 days later, he tweeted, wow, so we might actually have opened some doors with the Jimmy Woo X-Files idea. He's like, I'm spending the weekend writing the pitch. So, and from what I understand, one of his other follow-up tweets to the first one, his first, like, pitching his idea to Twitter, he replied to himself and says, "Yo, Peyton Reed, help me shepherd this." Oh, maybe that's asking Peyton Reed. Maybe not that Peyton Reed actually helped him. Never mind. I'm thinking Peyton Reed might have actually got him in the door. I think he's just talking to these people saying, "Hey, give me a chance here." Okay. Well, either way, it seems like 6-7 days after he tweeted that, and it started being retweeted and talked about on the internet, that now he's possibly pitching this thing. So that would be awesome. I think I'd love that idea.
Do we have any?
A Jimmy Woo show. I'm in.
Do we have any idea, like, who is this guy? Is
I
he
looked up his IMDb.
screenwriter?
He's listed as like director. I think he's acted in more things. He has directed some stuff. So I don't know how much clout he actually has, like in Hollywood, quote unquote, like in the industry.
Okay, so he's not just Steven from Twitter.
Right. Correct.
Steven from Twitter.
He's got Teen Wolf listed in his bio and stuff too. So I don't know if he was, I'm guessing, actor in Teen Wolf.
Like old Teen Wolf?
No, new Teen Wolf. No, that is not Styles from the 80s.
So I don't know. I'm not looking at the Twitter. I'm not seeing this person the same way that you are.
So yeah, I'd actually love to see that. I feel like it'd be really fun if they almost bring in Jimmy Woo and Darcy as like the Mulder and Scully for the X-Files. I'd love to see something like that.
That would be fun.
So anyway, just wanted to bring it up just in case it happens. So there's a possibility. I don't know when we'll actually hear anything official, but at the rate they're moving, like holy shit, if a week later he's doing a pitch.
Well, I think one of the Marvel 666 things was I can't remember that guy's name. But he was pitching like an idea. Like Disney actually reached out to people and said, "We want new ideas to explore new characters." And he went and pitched this idea to make a movie or a show about this ridiculously unknown group of heroes.
Oh, right, the
from Marvel Comics past.
Yeah, I watched that series.
And
It was Paul Scheer.
Scheer.
Oh yeah.
And it was this team. I can't even remember the name of it, but they only had ever had 4 comics in Marvel's history, and he was trying to pitch the idea of using them, and it was dumb. It was just the worst idea for a comic book ever. They tried like making toys and then turning them into comics. They tried going like the backward route.
Yeah.
So they had like a dolphin and mechanized armor for some reason was one of the heroes, and
It was kind of
weird.
badass though.
But yeah, well, like his end result actually looked kind of badass. What was in the original comic looked dumb as shit to me. But it was something Disney was actually doing. Like he was actually filming what ended up being this hour-long show as a documentary of him making the series. He had inevitably got turned down because of
It just wasn't chosen.
it was a dolphin in a mechanized suit.
Yeah.
But I think they've been like actively been encouraging people to come to them with fresh ideas on content to make from characters that are less used.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes from the success of Guardians.
Definitely.
Because before Guardians, Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, they were there, but nobody gave a shit. So I think that's also why we're getting an Eternals movie. Guardians.
No, for sure.
Nobody cared about the Eternals, but we're getting that. So something with Jimmy Woo, that somebody comes with this character that seems to be liked by just about everybody. Like
I love that.
I've not met anybody that does not like that character.
When Jimmy Woo finally shows up in the show and introduces himself to Monica, and he does the card trick.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's such a great little
so
nod
great.
to like him and Ant-Man and stuff like that. Oh, I got a good chuckle out of that too.
That's character growth.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Last call for anything you guys want to touch on that we did not? Otherwise, we'll try to close it down.
Yeah, we can. The only thing I would say right now is kudos to the showrunner. I think her name is Jack Shepard, or Schaefer, Jack Schaefer. She is, I think, doing a great job, and she's also one of the co-writers on the Black Widow's screenplay.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Good
that's one
work.
thing I guess we haven't done enough is give these guys credit. Whoever is working on the show, that just the sitcom tropes, the like, for instance, the end of last episode when Vision and Scarlet Witch get into a fight, and he's like, "You can't control me," and she goes, "Oh, can't I?" And then the credits start to roll, and you're like, "Oh shit!" And then they stop the credits fade out as the argument builds up because the illusion is breaking. Like shit like that, from a technical standpoint, is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I think they're really nailing it with how they're hitting these shows and the tones of the shows of the time. And I think it was a really awesome idea to do what they're doing. They could have done this with anything. I mean, it makes sense for Wanda and everything, but touching on all this timeline of American television that they've gone through so far. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to the show, but also seeing their eventual interpretation and which show they decide to mimic from the 80s, which show they decide to mimic from the 90s. What are they going to do with those shows? And, I'm really looking forward, here's hoping we get an Urkel appearance from somebody that pops through the door and does the Urkel thing. I don't know who. I'm not going to throw out who it could be because I have no idea, but it would be an amazing thing to have something like that attached to it.
I feel like I have to say too, like this is the first MCU series on Disney Plus. It has set the bar for every other MCU series that we're gonna get. Like every week I'm like, what are they gonna do this? Like after a couple of the reveals that they've done the last couple episodes, I'm like, holy shit! And we're only halfway through this season. Like, what the fuck are they gonna do? Like, I can't imagine what the rest of this season is gonna bring.
The only reason I have begrudgingly mentally tolerated the idea of weekly shows again is because it is slightly helping to continue to pass pandemic time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I really just wish that they would just dump the whole thing.
See, I like this though. Like, it gives us the chance to have a week to digest and theorize and talk about this stuff. I like the speculation stuff, and the fact that we know we don't have to wait another year, 6 months or 2 years for a sequel to a movie or something.
True.
Like, this is a nice little breadcrumb type of thing.
I mean, with all that stuff, I go both ways on it. I say, like, depends on the content. With something like this, I like the idea of waiting. You know what I mean? Like, getting that week to see that next 20 minutes, I'm okay with that. Because it's just a little morsel. But when it's something that's very time-consuming and engrossing, I actually prefer to just binge watch that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say with as much content as they have already said that they are going to be making, if things are back to normal by the end of this year, and they're playing catch up too, if we're getting 2 and 3 movies a year and 2 and 3, 4 shows a year, at that point, yeah, I am gonna wish they're not gonna do it, but I am gonna wish that it was just back to a binge show dump.
Yeah.
At that point.
Do we know if this is like a limited series, or is this like season 1 and we might get a season 2?
With as much as
I would assume this one is definitely a limited series.
Yeah, I think with as much as they've said that they've announced that they're going to be making, I don't know how, like they've announced like 12 different shows.
Yeah.
For Disney Plus, like live action MCU shit. Like aside
None
from
of them
the what
have
ifs
said,
and
like,
everything.
They're not billing any of them as like first season, right? They all seem to be just I don't know if they're all going to be like one-off series type of thing, but
I mean, in this specific instance, I almost definitely would say it's a one-off just because of the content.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no way that you continue this off to a second season.
Well, especially if Vision doesn't come out of this season alive.
Yeah, and
I mean, if Vision doesn't come out alive, but you're leaving these giant gaping holes that movies have to answer in between.
Right. Yeah.
And since it affects an entire other universe, it's really tough to continue on seasonally when you're leaving these big unanswered questions.
Well, I'm not saying
for all this time.
We'd get season 2 like next year. I'm thinking like whenever just a second season, anytime. At this point, probably presumably after Doctor Strange 2 at some point.
If it would make sense for the story, I guess it could. I'm presuming they are just taking this opportunity to tell connective stories more frequently,
fill the gaps
in a different medium.
Yeah.
Than actually, like, oh look, now we're producing
like
television, like several different television series shows. I just think it's a different way to present it.
And I think they're also, if you look at, like, at least in this case, the drip feed of content over 9 episodes is really going to add up to about a movie length.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, these are listed as 24 minutes or whatever, but none of them have actually hit that 24-minute mark. That's all with credits and shit afterwards. They're more about 18, 19, hitting 20. Right. That puts you right in that longer movie mark that maybe they wanted to tell this story and they knew it wouldn't market well in a theater. So,
yeah.
Tell it on, and then of course Disney Plus is the whole thing.
Well, I like, we've talked about it before. Some of the movies jam-pack so much stuff in them that it's nice having like a time to tell a good story. So I like that they're spreading this out over 9 episodes and giving you time to digest it and sink into it and pick up all these little details that we might not have been able to get through movies that are strictly 2 hours. Yeah, I dig all that stuff. I think that's it. Last call. Anything else? Nothing else? All right.
Enjoying it so far. Can't wait to see the rest.
Yeah, as much as I feel like I would love to like talk about like record something for the show every week, I don't know if we'd be able to do that. So I don't know if we'll jump back into this before the end of the season. Maybe we'll see if anything else like really major happens. But at the very least, we will definitely come back and talk about this when the show concludes in a couple weeks. So until now and then, hopefully, I'm expecting some other brain-breaking shit to happen. So we'll see. If you've enjoyed the show, please support us. Leave a 5-star rating and review. You can give us a share on social media. You can follow or subscribe to the show. We are on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Anchor, Stitcher. Hopefully anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us. You can find us on Facebook. Search Bry Guy into Super Friends or go to facebook.com/BryGuySuperFriends. And you can send us questions, comments, topic suggestions, comment on some of the posts we put there. Give us your 2 cents. That's where to do it. You can try to email us, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. It's legit. It works. I don't check it, but feel free. Have at it. Hit us up on Twitter at BGSuperFriends. You can also follow me on Twitch. I should have plugged it earlier. I forgot. At Jedi Bry Guy. That's Jedi with an I, Bry with a Y. Anytime we do a live show, we will do it there. I don't know when we'll do the next live one, but we've done 2 so far. I think they're probably past the 2-month period, so they're probably not on my Twitch channel anymore. But we'll have to find something else worth talking about. Maybe I don't know. If enough people watch the show and want to see us do it live, maybe we'll do the conclusion of WandaVision live or something. I don't know. We'll have to work it out. But either way, keep your eye on that page. I'll post about it whenever we decide to go live. And other than that, on behalf of Josh, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.